Today, we're addressing a major topic in global news: Donald Trump's tariff policies. These measures have stirred debate worldwide, influencing economies, businesses, and consumers. In this video, we'll trace the origins of Trump's tariff war, outline its key developments, and share the latest updates. A tariff is a tax that a government places on goods imported from other countries. For instance, if a smartphone is manufactured abroad, a tariff raises its cost because the importer must pay an extra fee to bring it into the country. Governments use tariffs to protect local industries by making foreign products more expensive, encourage domestic production, or pressure other nations to change their trade practices. Donald Trump, the current U.S. president, has consistently championed tariffs. He believes they bolster American businesses, create jobs, and correct imbalances in global trade. Supporters argue that tariffs can revive industries like manufacturing, which have faced competition from cheaper imports. For example, a tariff on foreign steel could help U.S. steelmakers hire more workers. However, tariffs often increase prices for consumers, affecting items like clothing, electronics, and food. They can also spark disputes with other countries, leading to broader economic consequences. To grasp the current situation, we must examine the history of Trump's tariff policies. Trump's tariff strategy took shape from 2017 to 2021, during his first term as president. In 2018, he launched tariffs on billions of dollars worth of Chinese goods. These included products like electronics, textiles, and industrial machinery. His goal was to address what he called unfair trade practices by China, such as intellectual property theft, government subsidies for Chinese firms, and flooding the U.S. market with low-cost goods that undercut American producers. China quickly retaliated by taxing U.S. exports, targeting products like soybeans, automobiles, and pork. This escalation affected both economies. American consumers paid more for goods like televisions and shoes, while U.S. farmers struggled as China cut back on buying their crops. In 2020, the two countries signed the Phase 1 trade agreement. China committed to purchasing more American goods, such as agricultural products, and both sides agreed to ease some tensions. However, many tariffs remained, and underlying issues were unresolved. Trump's tariffs extended beyond China. He imposed taxes on steel and aluminum from allies like Canada, Mexico, and the European Union, citing national security concerns. These moves strained diplomatic ties, prompting retaliatory tariffs on U.S. goods such as whiskey, motorcycles, and dairy products. Over time, negotiations led to agreements that reduced some of these tariffs, but Trump's approach showed his readiness to use trade policy for economic and political leverage. Why does Trump prioritize tariffs? He argues they are essential to restoring American economic strength. He claims that decades of free trade have allowed countries like China to dominate markets, leading to factory closures and job losses in U.S. states like Ohio and Michigan. By raising the cost of imports, tariffs encourage companies to produce in the U.S., potentially creating jobs in sectors like steel, automotive, and technology. For instance, a tariff on imported cars could boost U.S. automakers. Tariffs also generate government revenue, which Trump says can fund infrastructure or tax relief. Critics highlight significant downsides. Tariffs often lead to higher prices as businesses pass on costs. A tariff on imported car parts, for example, could make vehicles more expensive for buyers. Tariffs can disrupt global supply chains, affecting companies relying on foreign components. When other nations retaliate, U.S. exporters, like farmers selling grain or manufacturers shipping machinery, face reduced demand. This tension between short-term gains and long-term risks drives debate about Trump's trade policies. Trump's second term began in January 2025 after his 2024 election victory. He promptly reaffirmed his commitment to tariffs, framing them as a cornerstone of his economic agenda. In February 2025, he signed an executive order for a comprehensive review of U.S. trade practices, signaling plans for broader tariff measures. In March, Trump unveiled reciprocal tariffs. If a country imposed a 10% tax on American goods, the U.S. would respond with a 10% tariff on that country's exports. The policy aimed to ensure fair trade but alarmed industries like retail and technology, which depend on international markets. By April 2025, the situation intensified. Trump announced steep tariffs on Chinese imports, raising the tax on goods like electronics, toys, and clothing to over 100%. This unsettled global markets, with stock exchanges in New York, Tokyo, and London seeing sharp declines as investors feared a trade war. China countered by increasing tariffs on U.S. products to around 80%, targeting agriculture, energy, and pharmaceuticals. Trump also imposed 25% tariffs on goods from Canada and Mexico, linking them to concerns about border security and drug trafficking. These raised costs for U.S. consumers, as Canada and Mexico supply cars, vegetables, and oil. Other nations, including the European Union, planned tariffs on U.S. exports, threatening goods like apples, jeans, and cosmetics. In early April 2025, Trump made a surprising move. He declared a 90-day pause on tariffs for most countries, excluding China. This offered relief to nations like Canada, Mexico, and the European Union, boosting global stock markets as investors welcomed reduced uncertainty. Trump stated the pause was a chance for these countries to negotiate trade deals aligning with U.S. interests. For China, pressure escalated. Trump raised tariffs on Chinese goods to 125% for many products, with an additional 20% tied to issues like illegal drug flows. He argued China had not addressed U.S. concerns. China warned of strong countermeasures, hinting at restricting exports of rare earth minerals, vital for smartphones, batteries, and electric vehicles. This strategy, easing tariffs for most countries while intensifying pressure on China, reshaped the trade landscape. It alleviated fears of a global economic crisis, but underscored the U.S.-China divide. As of April 11, 2025, the tariff situation is pivotal. The 90-day pause for most countries has opened a window for diplomacy. Leaders from Europe, Japan, and South Korea are holding talks with the U.S. to avoid new tariffs. Some offer concessions, like importing more American goods such as natural gas or lowering barriers to U.S. services to secure favorable terms. The U.S.-China relationship remains tense. Chinese officials criticize Trump's tariffs as a threat to global trade stability. They suggest steps beyond tariffs, like limiting exports of critical materials or reducing reliance on U.S. financial systems, which could disrupt American technology and automotive sectors. In the U.S., tariffs spark mixed reactions. Industries like steel support tariffs for reducing competition. However, agriculture, retail, and manufacturing worry about costs. Tariffs on Chinese electronics could raise prices for laptops, gaming consoles, and other devices. Economists warn prolonged disruptions might weaken growth, though Trump insists his policies will lead to prosperity. What can we expect? The 90-day pause offers a chance for progress. If negotiations succeed, fewer tariffs could stabilize prices for goods like cars and clothing. If talks falter, tariffs could return, reigniting tensions. The U.S.-China conflict is less predictable. Both sides seem entrenched, risking a prolonged standoff. Some believe Trump seeks a major trade deal with China, like in 2020. Others caution escalation could harm global supply chains, causing shortages and higher costs. This issue affects people everywhere. In the U.S., tariffs may raise prices for imports like smartphones, furniture, or coffee. Outside the U.S., American products, movies, snacks, machinery could cost more due to retaliatory tariffs. A wider trade war might slow growth, impacting jobs and businesses globally. However, tariffs could stimulate local industries. Increased U.S. manufacturing might create jobs in some communities. This concludes our examination of Donald Trump's tariff war as of now. From its beginnings in 2018 to the critical developments of 2025, this issue shapes global economies. The pause for most countries offers hope for calmer relations, but the U.S.-China dispute remains a challenge. Follow this channel for ongoing updates as these tariff policies evolve.